Welcome to Practical Talk Time. I'm your host, Usha Kumar. In this new year, we have so many exciting things going on, and we're having all the presidential candidates coming up and trying to tell us who they are. And as we move forward with the year and hoping that some of our goals will be achieved too, whether they're personal or professional, I think it'll be great to have a little bit of an insight into what to expect from this year. And in order to help us with that, I have a wonderful guest here who's Elaine Kuzmeskus. She is the director of the New England School of Metaphysics, and she's also a noted astrologer, and she's certified by the American Federation of Astrologers. She makes annual predictions for the Paranormal View and has written for the American Federation of Astrologers and Fate magazine. Recently, she was featured on Better Connecticut and the PBS special, Things That Go Bump in the Night. In 2004, Elaine Kuzmeskus published Soul Cycles, a text which combines keen psychological insight with the ancient science of astrology. Her other books include Connecticut Ghosts, Seance 101, and The Art of Mediumship. Some of these we have presented in our show before. This Art of Mediumship is a how-to book on clairvoyance, psychic investigation, and channeling. Her latest book is The Medium Who Baffled Houdini, about the Boston medium Marjorie Crandon, who made headlines in the 1920s. Today, Elaine is going to talk about astrology and give her predictions for the year ahead. So please join me in welcoming Elaine. Elaine,
nice to
welcome
see you.
to the show.
Good.
I've been so excited ever since you agreed to come and do a prediction for the 2016 for US.
Yes.
And I know we all got very busy with the holidays.
I know.
And so we couldn't make the show, the first show for the year, but it's still in January.
Right.
And hopefully we'll get it out there, and still January and February, I guess, for the couple shows that we're going to be doing today.
Good, thank you. It's always fun to be on your show and to share astrological knowledge with your viewers.
I respect you and admire you for all the knowledge that you have, and the books you have written. So please tell me how you got into astrology.
Well, you know, it's really kind of an interesting story, Usha. I've always been very intuitive all my life. And since I am intuitive, one of the things that I wanted to do was learn more about using my intuition. So I began to read the books of Edgar Cayce. Have you ever heard of Edgar Cayce?
Definitely, yeah.
And Edgar Cayce said everyone should have their chart done. So what I did was I just set my birth date, I checked off female, and I sent it to Time Patterns Research in Long Island. And a computer did my first horoscope. And it was so interesting because it told me I was intuitive, that I would be very close to an Aquarius, my mother was Aquarius, and that I would not be close to my father after the age of 8, which was right on the money because my parents divorced when I was 8. My mother moved back to Boston and my father remained in Los Angeles. And I thought, how can a computer know me that well? I was like floored. So I began to read books on astrology. I read Isabel Hickey's book, Cosmic Astrology. And I also read a lot of Mark Edmund Jones and Alan Leo. And I became convinced that astrology worked. And what I did is I just studied on my own for a couple of years. And then I went to the New England School of Astrology, which was run by Frances Sequoyah. And Frances Sequoyah was an excellent astrologer. She was also in Who's Who in America and well known as a publicist. And she wrote her first book while I was studying with her, The Astrologer's Handbook. So it was exciting. Every week I'd come to class and Frances would bring her notes for the book and we'd hear the chapters before anybody else did. And I became very enthusiastic. And then I took my astrological certification exam to become a professional astrologer. And it's like a law exam. It's an 8-hour exam.
When was that? Before you became a medium?
It was just afterwards. It was 1975. In December, I took the exam and I passed it. And I got my certificate as a professional astrologer from the American Federation of Astrologers. And I've been practicing ever since. Yes. I also like to do annual predictions. And my annual predictions are based on the chart of the United States. You know, the United States has a chart just like a person. Because as a nation, we were born in the wee hours, about 2:10 a.m., on July 4th, 1776 in Philadelphia, when the last delegates signed the Declaration of Independence. We became a separate nation, separate from England. And at that exact moment, when we became the United States, we had a very unique configuration. One of the things that about the United States is we are a nation of the people, by the people, and for the people, with our moon in the democratic sign of Aquarius. We have our sun, Jupiter, and Venus in Cancer, and those are the benefic planets. Are you aware that some planets are better than others? The sun brightens, Venus sweetens, and Jupiter expands.
Venus and what else?
Sun, Venus, and Jupiter in Cancer.
Okay. Venus and Jupiter are benefics.
They're benefics, and in Western astrology, the sun is it brightens. So we have the three benefics in our second house of wealth. So the United States is the wealthiest country, and they always say we can feed the world if we wanted to, and that's our tremendous resources. But we're also very interesting because we have the sign Gemini, which rules the highways and byways, as our ascendant. And we are a nation that likes to travel and be on the move. So it's an interesting configuration. And one of the things that I really enjoy about astrology is telling people why they should have a chart done. There are three reasons. One, it tells the person their character and personality, which is very important to know in advance, especially for a child. If you know you've got a sweet little Pisces, then you're going to have to be a little more delicate with that Pisces daughter than, say, if you had a strong Leo son, who may be a little rugged and like sports. It gives your natural inclinations. And I find by doing astrology, you get a sense of a person's vocation. For example, they find, this is research that was done by Michael Gogolin in France, that people that are athletes have very strong Mars positions in their chart. And Mars in astrology represents sports and athletics. Mm-hmm. People that are very, very strong as writers often have a lot of Mercury aspects. And Mercury is the planet of communication and writing.
So it can really help a person develop themselves better in the field that they can be successful in.
Right, well, it gives you a natural inclination. Mm-hmm. And I always feel the timing is the second reason you should study astrology. Because I'll tell you, timing really is everything. Just like if you were planning to buy real estate, as one of my clients was in San Jose, mm-hmm. California, in December of 2007, might not be the best time. I told her to wait a year and see how she felt, and she was very glad she did, because they had the real estate bust in 2008. Right. I said, I don't know. I said, Sue, I don't know. She was my client for many, many years. All I can tell you is something's going to happen. Wait a year and then buy. I would suggest you rent. And at that time, she was thinking of buying a $500,000 home, mm-hmm. which would have, by the end of the year, would have been worth about $250,000. So she was very glad she waited. She was.
She listened to you.
She did. Well, she'd been my client for like 20 years, so she knew when I said something, it worked.
That's wonderful. You have written a book, Soul Cycles.
Yes,
What's that book about?
Let me just show you.
Because I want to get to that before we start talking about the charts and predictions.
After 30 years of as a professional astrologer, I was teaching astrology. And you know, I never saw the faces of my students. You know why? They were so busy taking notes. So I said, this is kind of silly. I have it all typed up. I'm just going to put it in a book. It's 500 pages. You can purchase it on Amazon.com or through my website, www.theartofmediumship. But you know, this way everybody has the notes. And when they take my astrology classes, I say you're free to take notes, but you don't need to. It's all in the book. So people
I think that's a big
it's really good
help, because I remember when I attended some of these seminars, you know, whether they are astrology or science or business, we often spend too much time trying to write down what the professor is saying, and then we kind of miss out on trying to think about the concept of what they are saying.
Right, so people can relax
so it's better
and
that
enjoy
it's
it.
in a book or in a handout or something, so the student can just listen to the professor and try to think along those lines and kind of dream about those.
I think it's very helpful, and I know the students are very glad. Some still like to take notes, which is fine, but they don't have to.
So it says Astrology 101, so
It's about the basics of astrology. I have to laugh. I was doing O.J. Simpson's chart way back when. And I said to the students, when I looked at the chart, he's going to get off. He's in kind of a lucky cycle now. But I said, in 2 years, watch out, something's going to happen. He's going to be back in court. And it was true. The criminal case, he was let go. But then the families had a civil case, and he did get in trouble for that. Another time I was doing President Bill Clinton's chart, and he hadn't been elected president once. I said, this gentleman who's running for the Democratic Party has a very different chart because the sun represents power, your personality, and your leadership. And his sun was in the 12th house. I said, he doesn't have a lot of leadership.
It's in his chart, or was it in the transit?
No, it is in the 12th house.
Okay.
And I said, the funny thing is he may be elected president, but it's not going to be an easy run, and he was impeached once, And so you could see from the chart. You can also often tell whether someone will be successful in enterprise. For example, a woman came to me in about January of 2008, and she was a wonderful businesswoman, and she wanted to have her own business helping people organize their files and storage systems. She was put about $100,000 into advertising and getting the business going. And I looked at her chart, and it looked like there were going to be very difficult transits for the next 18 months. So I said to her, I don't think this is the best time to continue. And then I looked at her husband's chart, and it was great. So I said, well, what does your husband do? She says, he has a business finishing basements. And I said, you ought to help him. And he became very successful.
In that? Oh,
his chart was perfectly timed.
I see.
Yeah.
Okay.
But she did take my advice, so that it's a matter of, you have to build a relationship with your clients.
I know that if you look at the general public, there are those that follow astrology, those that want to get some insights, but at the same time they don't really know much about it. And then you have those that think that astrology is something bad and devil's work or something like that.
That's true.
So what do you say to those people?
I have to say I was a total skeptic. I really was. Because I went to university, I was an English major, and I thought, I've never heard of this. This is just nonsense. It's hocus pocus. In fact, once I was going through my mother's bottom drawer, and she had a horoscope there, and I was totally embarrassed. I was ashamed that anyone would have their horoscope done. But as I say, I kind of came in through the back door through intuition and Edgar Cayce.
Your mother had a horoscope?
She did. She must have. I just saw it. I thought, this is the most ridiculous thing.
I see.
I was a teenager. You know how teenagers
Did you ask her about it at all?
No, I was ashamed. I was said, how can anybody believe in astrology?
I see.
So I started
why
as a
did you
skeptic.
have that kind of thought? Was it what you learned in school? Or?
What I think I was a skeptic because when I went to school, we were taught otherwise, and it took a long time for me to believe in astrology, about 5 years.
I see.
I studied for 5 years before I could make up my mind. But I did many, many charts, and I found them to be not only accurate, but to help people. And that's what made me want to be a professional astrologer.
That is wonderful. And I'm glad you're here today to tell us about what we can expect for U.S. and two of the most talked about candidates,
I'd be
Donald
glad
Trump
to.
and Hillary Clinton.
I think that's very important.
Why did you pick Hillary and not Bernie Sanders?
Oh, I love Bernie Sanders. I just think she's going to get the Democratic nomination.
I see.
If you recall back, I did predict that Barack Obama would get the nomination, and he did.
Yes,
and that he would
became
win.
president. Yeah.
Yes, I did predict that. So I would say, first of all, you have to understand that everybody has their own unique horoscope, including the nation. And we talked a little bit about our country, but we should think about the transits right now. For one thing, the outer planets are what often change, are the change makers. And right now,
that is for what
world.
they change for the world.
For the world.
society in general.
So we have to see where the world is, and the world is going through the 7th of Pluto square Uranus, which are big power struggles.
What does that mean?
Pluto is the big
Pluto
money.
square Uranus.
Right.
So that means each is 90 degrees to the other.
Right. That's correct. And Pluto is the big power, and Uranus has changed. So there's a lot of world struggles, and I think we're all feeling that. So the United States is responding to that the best that we can. And we also are going through a period of tremendous growth in medicine and in education as well, because Jupiter, the planet of expansion, has gone into Virgo. So you're going to see tremendous growth in technology, in business methods, and also in I think the medical industry and education.
For how long?
I would say it's going to be there at least until September. So that'll be good. We'll see more money spent in that direction. But Saturn, the planet of restraint, we call it the karmic planet, is
restraint or limitation.
Limitations, and it's in the planet of Sagittarius. So the party's over. People have to get back to business and practical, back to basics. I think as I look at the United States chart, we're in a weaker cycle, January, February, economically. And I think I predicted this back in the fall, so this is not something new. And it's because the stock market is reacting to the consciousness of people. People don't know where we are or what's going to happen, so it's becoming very conservative. I do think the price of silver is going to go up a bit the second half of the year.
That's good.
May go down first, so watch and see. It could go down a bit, but I think the second half it'll go up. And I think silver will outperform gold because silver is used in industry. Yeah. I feel very strongly that we are going through a period where we have to watch for weather changes. You know, you can predict the weather from astrology. You can.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Which planets do we look at?
Well, all the planets, but you look and see what's happening in terms of right now. We have Neptune in Pisces, which is a water sign, squaring Saturn in Sagittarius, and that often indicates either too much or too little water. So I think we're going to find more drought in the summer months. Okay. Which will bring food prices, especially grains, may go up. And I do feel that there's going to be more flooding on in the West Coast, in California, and the Baja, and I also feel more flooding on the East Coast. So these are weather predictions. But we also feel there's some wonderful things coming. I feel in the spring there's a good boost to technology. I know your son's in technology, right?
Yes.
Yes. So this will be very good for his industry.
I see.
And there are also going to be new inventions in medicine. I'm very big on this targeting cancer cells. You know, Jimmy Carter overcame cancer at 93.
I know. Isn't
God
that
bless
amazing?
him. He is my favorite president because he is so good-hearted. So I was very glad. I think all the prayers that people sent out helped too. But it was because of the new cancer therapy. So I feel that's going to be very important. I do feel that we're going to find excellent treatments for diabetes, and maybe about 3 to 5 years we're going to find, I won't say a cure for Alzheimer's, but they're going to have ways of arresting it and dealing with it.
I see.
So medicine in the United States is going to be
advancement in that.
Advance, wonderful.
Hopefully
so that's a good
people
thing.
will get benefit, because sometimes these don't reach all the people.
Well, I think eventually, maybe in 3 years, we are going to have to go into a new Medicare system. A new universal health plan. I think the current affordable care is going to be revamped. And I kind of like Bernie Sanders' idea of a one-pay system because it certainly would be more efficient, but I think that it's going to be a combination that will eventually help the American people.
I see.
Now, everyone asks me, all my business clients say, Elaine, is the interest rates going up? I say no, not right away, but in the spring, April, May, they're going to inch up again. I'm talking inch, 0.5% for the federal borrow interest rate. I think that's going to make people a little antsy. They're going to say, if I'm going to buy a house, I better buy it now before the mortgage rates go up.
Yeah, I did hear that interest rates will go up this year.
Not until after March.
4 times, but a little bit at a time.
A little bit at a time, but not until after March.
But that the economists are already saying it. So.
Well, I'm
now
saying astrologically.
Also it's possible.
So I think
we only have about 8 minutes or something left. So Is that all for the United
Yeah, well, there's
States?
more, but we could talk about it in the next segment. What I'd like to do is talk about the charts, because everyone, of course, is talking about the presidential election.
Oh, we didn't put the U.S. chart up.
Yours is right in the middle here.
Yeah, if there's something important, we can have them bring it up. Yeah, that's a chart up on the screen.
There. Well, there are some very important things. For one thing that's going on right now is we have Gemini rising, so 8 Sagittarius rules our house of open enemies. So from mid-March all the way through September 29, we have to be very careful because the war planet is right on our descendant, the house of open enemies. And that's what they're going to be talking about in the news. People are going to say we have to be so careful. We can't take any chances with foreign powers. I think also what happens between October 5th and October 29th will decide the presidential election, because I think it's going to be very, very close. So let's look at the candidates chart. Here is Hillary Clinton's chart. Hillary Clinton was born October 26, 1947 at 8:02 a.m. in Chicago. She has her sun in early Scorpio, so she's got a strong will, and her moon is in Pisces. She actually has a better sense of humor than people think. She really does. And she has a very strong opinions. Her Venus, Mercury are in the sign of Scorpio, making a strong aspect, but an adverse one, to Pluto and Saturn. When she makes up her mind, she doesn't stop. She is unstoppable. She does have to watch her speech. Her moon in the sign of Pisces squares Uranus. She's very apt to shoot from the hip or answer questions a bit too quickly. Now, Donald Trump, the Republican candidate, I think these two are going to win the primaries. Donald Trump was born June 14th, 1946 at about 10:54 a.m. in Jamaica, New York, which is just outside of New York City. He has his sun in Gemini, and Geminis are good deal makers, and he did write the book, The Art of the Deal. His moon's in Sagittarius, so the man loves to talk, doesn't he? He's a talker, and he's very well liked because he can make a joke or get along with everyone. But he has Leo rising. He has 29 Leo, which in astrology is the degree of leadership, because it is right on top of the fixed star Regulus, which is the kingmaker. So he rules by divine right. He does, like Mrs. Clinton, he's got a moon Uranus aspect, so he's got to watch what he says. And I think the elections are going to be very close. I feel this way. I think it's going to be within 5 percentage points, which is close. I feel if we are sending troops out and it looks like we're going into a war condition, this is better for Trump, because people are going to want his kind of macho type image. On the other hand, if the Democrats are doing a good job, people are going to say, let's stay the course and stay with the Democrats. So really, October is going to really be the key to the election of 2016.
So depending on what happens between now and September, and also what happens in October itself,
right?
You're saying might change.
Might change. I don't want anyone to think the world is fixed or astrology is fatalistic. Even Ray Merriman, we talked about the price of the economy. He said, watch the price of gold in December. If it doesn't go above 13,000 or I'm sorry, 1,300 or up 1,350, then it's going to be a slow year next year. Everything is relative.
Below that, so
it did. So economically,
it's going to be a slow year.
According to our financial expert Ray Merriman, it's going to be a slow economy.
But a lot of companies are reporting great earnings.
I'm just telling you.
They're just watching that this weekend.
Right. Astrology is not fixed. It is relative to other events in the world. So it's very important to remember that.
So whatever you were saying, it's based on the transits and also the chart itself?
The natal chart is the promise at birth.
Okay.
The transits are the opportunities. So you may be a great athlete, but if you don't have the opportunity to go to soccer camp, then you may not be a good soccer player. So we need both. We need the native abilities that we bring in, but we need the environment to help enhance our abilities. So we need both.
We only have about 3 minutes left, I guess. So we're good with the time.
Yes. But you know, I think the most important thing that I've learned from astrology is that astrology affects everyone, whether you believe in it or not. It affects you on a psychological level, on a physical level, and on a spiritual level. And to me, the most important of the three is the spiritual. That's why I call my book Soul Cycles, because I truly believe that when we're born and the infant takes their first breath, they become astrologically imprinted. And this is just a mechanism to help develop our spiritual nature. And you know, the Vedic astrologies are very big on the spirituality as part of astrology, yes.
We have a couple minutes left.
Right.
I'm just wondering, so between the two, you're saying they both have the potential.
Yes,
and
very
then
definitely.
depending on, for leadership or their own,
they both have incredible
and also
potential.
Their, support.
Absolutely. But they both have the Moon Uranus aspects, which means it's crazy. Anything could happen to upset the apple cart. And they have to really watch very carefully their words, what they say, and the people around them, especially Mrs.
Who
Clinton.
will be better for the U.S., for the people? Who will be able to do more for us?
I would have to say that is up to the people to decide, because the United States has its moon, which is the people in the democratic sign of Aquarius. Not everybody gets their way in the United States, but everybody gets their say. So I'll leave that thought with you.
That is wonderful, because definitely that's why we have the system of voting.
Right, absolutely.
At least now people know what their strengths and weaknesses are, especially those of the candidates.
Right.
And they can plan accordingly.
Right. I mean, I think Donald Trump has tremendous leadership, tremendous charisma. He's generous. And contrary to what people have said about him, he very much likes women and respects them. But he also has a tendency sometimes with the moon in Gemini to vacillate a little bit, and that he's been criticized for being too much of a deal maker. Mrs. Clinton has also been criticized by keeping things behind the scenes, and that's a Scorpio trait, because Scorpios are very private and they don't always like to be in the public. So even though Donald Trump may have a more charismatic personality, Mrs. Clinton has a lot to offer.
Thank you very much, Elaine.
I hope I've been diplomatic
too. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
And I'm sure people will think about all this for the year ahead and plan accordingly. Thank you all for watching. I hope you enjoyed the show. If you have any comments, write to practicaltalktime@yahoo.com. Please tune in again next week, because we're going to have a wonderful Valentine's show with Elaine.
The lighter side of astrology.
The brighter side of astrology and the love side of astrology.